All right, so are you ready to like get lost in a world that's, well, captivating and unsettling? It's the world of Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood.
Yeah, and it's a deep dive.
It is a deep
A
dive.
whole novel
A whole
in
novel.
one deep dive.
You might be thinking, a whole novel. That's a lot to unpack, but that's what we're here for.
Exactly. We're going to take you beyond the surface, explore those nuances, the symbolism, all that. Really get to the heart of what makes Norwegian Wood so compelling.
Okay, so let's start with the ending. I know it's kind of backwards, right? But trust me, the ending of Norwegian Wood, man, it's one of the most talked about aspects of the book. Ambiguous, haunting, and you're left with this lingering sense of unease. You know that feeling you finish the book and you're just like, wait, what? What just happened? Did Toru find Midori? Is he still lost in his grief? Like,
It's brilliant, really. Murakami doesn't give you those easy answers. He wants you to sit with that uncertainty, grapple with the complexities of Tori's emotions, those choices that he faces.
and to understand that ending, well, we got to understand the journey, right? So let's rewind a bit and talk about the characters.
Okay?
Toru, our protagonist, sensitive, introspective guy, navigating the turbulent waters of love, loss, and self-discovery. All in 1960s Japan.
Yeah, 1960s Japan.
A time of social upheaval, student protests, a real clash between tradition and modernity.
And Murakami captures that atmosphere perfectly. The backdrop of social change, it mirrors the internal turmoil of the characters,
Right.
their own struggles with identity and belonging.
Right. And then into this already complex mix, you throw in Naoko.
Oh, Naoko.
Toru's first love.
Yeah.
Beautiful, enigmatic, but also deeply scarred by the suicide of her boyfriend Kazuki, who also happened to be Toru's best friend.
Yeah, Kazuki's suicide is the catalyst, right? It sets in motion a chain of events that profoundly impact both Koro and Naoko. They're forced to confront their own mortality, their grief, and the fragility of human connection.
It's interesting, how even though Kazuki is on, his presence looms over the entire story. He's like this ghost in the background, this constant reminder of the past that both Toru and Naoko are trying to escape.
Exactly. It speaks to one of Murakami's central themes, I think, the enduring power of memory.
Right?
The past is never truly gone. It shapes who we are, it haunts us, and it informs the choices we make, even if we try to deny it.
So we have Toru grappling with his feelings for Naoko, who is clearly struggling with her own demons. And then enters Midori, this vibrant, unconventional classmate who offers a stark contrast to Naoko's somberness.
Oh yeah, Midori. She's like a burst of sunshine, right? In a world that's increasingly shrouded in darkness, she's full of life, unapologetically herself, and she challenges Toru to see the world in a different light.
And their relationship is so different from what Toru has with Naoko. There's this playful banter, a shared sense of humor,
Yeah.
a level of openness and honesty that he never had with Naoko.
Which makes the ending all the more perplexing, right?
Right.
Because if Midori represents this potential for healing, for a new beginning, why does Toru end up lost and alone?
That's the question, isn't it? And to answer it, we got to delve deeper into the complexities of their relationships, the themes that Murakami explores, and, well, all that symbolism he weaves throughout the story.
The symbolism.
The symbolism, one thing that stands out is the role of music in the novel. It's not just background noise, is it?
It's not.
It's a language, a way for the characters to express their emotions, to connect with each other, and to grapple with the past.
You're right.
I mean, the book is called Norwegian Wood, and it's not just a random title, right?
It's not.
It's a reference to the Beatles song, which becomes this recurring motif throughout the story.
And think about the lyrics of that song. They speak of longing, of loss, of the inability to fully grasp or possess something you desire.
Right.
That's a pretty apt description of Tor's relationship with Naoko, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like he's reaching for her, but she's always just out of reach. And even when they're physically together, there's this emotional distance, this wall that he can't seem to break down.
And that brings us to another important theme, isolation. All the characters in Norwegian Wood, in their own way, are struggling with a sense of loneliness. Like a feeling of being disconnected from the world around them.
Even Nagasawa, Toru's cynical friend,
Nagasawa.
seems to have it all figured out. He's deeply lonely.
Oh, yeah.
He seeks connection through fleeting encounters, but never truly allows himself to be vulnerable or form lasting bonds.
It's like he's afraid of intimacy,
Yeah.
of the pain that comes with truly letting someone in.
Which is so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because it contrasts so sharply with Toru's character. Toru craves connection. He wants to love and be loved, but he's also afraid of hurting others, of repeating the mistakes of the past.
Right.
And that fear, I think, is what ultimately prevents him from fully committing to Midori.
Yeah.
He's haunted by the memory of Naoko, by the guilt and grief he feels over her death.
It's like he's trapped in this cycle of grief and longing, unable to fully let go of the past or embrace the possibilities of the present. And that perhaps is the key to understanding the novel's ambiguous ending.
So we left off talking about isolation and how it really permeates so much of Norwegian Wood. But it's not just the characters' struggles, right?
No, definitely not.
There's a sense of collective isolation too, don't you think?
Absolutely. You have the backdrop of 1960s Japan, a country grappling with the aftermath of war, rapid modernization and a clash between generations. You get this feeling of disillusionment, a sense that the old ways are crumbling and the new ones, well, they haven't quite taken shape.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, right? Does that societal backdrop, does it intensify the character struggles?
Oh, for sure.
Their turmoil mirrors the larger anxieties of the time period?
Yeah, it's definitely a factor. Think about the student protests.
Oh, yeah.
Murakami weaves those into the story, right?
Hmm.
And they represent this yearning for change, this frustration with the status quo, but also a sense of, I don't know, a lack of clear answers, and it echoes the uncertainty that the characters are facing in their own lives.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of uncertainty, let's talk about Toru's relationships. We've got this love triangle, or maybe it's more like a love, I don't know, a love square
Yeah.
with Naoko
Oh,
Midori,
no.
and even the ghost of Kazuki still very much present.
Oh, absolutely. And it's fascinating how Murakami presents these different forms of love, right? You have Tori's idealized love for Naoko, rooted in shared grief and a sense of responsibility for her well-being. And then there's his connection with Midori. It's more playful, spontaneous. It offers him a glimpse of what it means to, truly be present, embrace life's absurdities,
But it's not a simple choice between two women, is it?
It's not.
There are layers of guilt, obligation, and the weight of the past. It all clouds Tori's judgment.
Exactly. And that's where the symbolism of the sanatorium becomes so crucial. It's not just a physical place.
Oh, no.
It's a symbol of Naoko's internal state, her retreat from the world, her inability to cope with the pain and trauma she's carrying.
For me, the sanatorium, it represents this liminal space, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A place between life and death, sanity and madness. It's where Naoko goes to try and heal, but it also becomes a sort of prison, a symbol of her isolation and inability to truly connect with the world.
It is. And it's in that space that we meet Reiko, Naoko's roommate, who becomes this, I don't know, this unexpected source of wisdom and guidance for Toru. Her character is fascinating, a woman who's been through immense pain, lost her dreams, her sense of self, but who finds a way to keep going, finds meaning in the midst of suffering,
Reiko's story, her failed dream of being a concert pianist, her complex relationship with that young music student, it's like a microcosm of the broader themes, isn't it?
It is.
Loss, resilience, the search for connection, the power of music to both heal and haunt.
Yeah, and let's not forget the honesty that she brings to her conversations with Toru. I mean, she doesn't sugarcoat things. She challenges his assumptions about Naoko, about love, about life itself.
Remember that scene when she tells Toru that he needs to figure out what he wants? That he can't save Naoko if she doesn't want to be saved? It's brutal.
It is.
But it's also a wake-up call, don't you think?
Oh, totally.
For Toru.
It forces him to confront his own motivations, question whether he's truly in love with Naoko or just clinging to an idealized version of her, a memory of the past that he's trying to preserve.
And that brings us back to Midori. It's interesting how she represents this, opposite force, this pull towards life, embracing the present moment, even with all its, I don't know, all its messiness and uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
There's this one scene I love where Midori's making lunch for Toru, and she's chopping vegetables with this incredible energy and precision.
Vivid.
And it contrasts so sharply with Naoko's passivity, her withdrawal into herself.
Yeah.
It's like Midori's reminding Toru that life goes on, that there's still beauty and joy to be found, even in the midst of grief and loss.
And her own family history, with her eccentric father, their unconventional dynamic. It's almost like a counterpoint to the tragedy of Naoko's story. It's a reminder that life can be absurd, messy, even painful, but it can also be full of humor, warmth, unexpected connections.
Okay, so we have these competing forces pulling at Toru, right? His sense of obligation to Naoko, his growing connection with Midori, the weight of the past, the uncertainty of the future, and all of this is building towards that ambiguous ending that we talked about.
That's right.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's consider this. How do all these threads come together to create that haunting final image of Toru lost in a sea of faces, calling out for Midori?
Yeah.
And more importantly, what does it tell us about the nature of grief, the choices we make, and the possibility of finding connection and meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain? I feel like we've been dancing around this all episode.
I know, right?
That ending, Toru reaching out to Midori, desperate for connection, but the book ends. We don't hear her answer. It's almost cruel, isn't it?
Cruel, yeah, but powerful too.
Yeah.
Because it forces us, the readers, to confront that same uncertainty
Yeah.
that Tori's facing.
But totally.
We want that resolution,
Yeah.
that neat and tidy ending, but life,
Life doesn't work that way.
it rarely offers that.
Like Murakami is holding up a mirror to our own experiences with love and loss and the messy, unpredictable nature of life. We crave certainty, but sometimes all we're left with are questions.
I think that's particularly relevant for the setting, too. 1960s Japan,
Yeah.
a time of immense change. The old ways were being challenged, and the future, well, it felt uncertain. And the characters, especially Toru, they're grappling with this sense of displacement, trying to find their place in a world that's constantly shifting.
It's interesting you say that because even though it takes place in a specific time, the themes,
They feel universal, right?
they do feel so universal.
Yeah.
That feeling of being lost, of searching for connection, of trying to, I don't know, make sense of the past while also navigating the present. Those are emotions that, they resonate across cultures and generations.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why it continues to captivate readers. Decades after it was published, it taps into those fundamental human experiences, those timeless questions about love and loss and the search for meaning.
Okay, so let's talk about that ending. We have Toru calling out to Midori from the dead center of this place that was no place. What's your take? What do you think he's trying to convey?
Well, for me, it speaks to Toru's, I don't know, his state of limbo. He's lost Naoko, he's reaching out to Midori, but he's still caught between the past and the present, unable to fully let go or move forward.
He's in this in-between space, surrounded by people but feeling utterly alone. It's like he's searching for, I don't know, a foothold, a sense of belonging, but the ground keeps shifting beneath him.
And that sense of displacement.
Yeah.
It's heightened by the anonymity of the crowd. All those faces he doesn't recognize, the voices he can't distinguish. It's a metaphor, isn't it?
It is.
For the alienation and isolation that he's experiencing internally.
It's almost like he's calling out into the void, isn't it? Hoping for an answer, a sign, something to guide him out of the darkness. But whether Midori answers, whether she's even there, it's left ambiguous.
And that ambiguity,
Right.
it's crucial because it mirrors the uncertainty of life, right?
Yeah.
We don't always get those answers.
We don't.
We don't always know what the future holds.
Nope.
Sometimes all we can do is keep reaching out, keep searching, and hope that somewhere, somehow, we'll find our way.
It's a bit of a bleak outlook, isn't it?
Bleak, perhaps, but honest. Murakami, he doesn't shy away from the complexities. He doesn't offer those easy answers. Or fairy tale endings. He presents life as it is, messy, unpredictable, and often filled with both joy and sorrow.
But there's also that glimmer of hope, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Toru is reaching out. He's making a choice, however uncertain, to connect, to engage with life, to move forward. That's powerful.
It is. It suggests that even in the midst of grief and loss, uncertainty, there's still a possibility for growth, healing, for finding new connections and meaning.
And maybe that's the ultimate takeaway from Norwegian Wood. Life is a journey, not a destination. There will be moments of darkness and despair, but also moments of light and connection. And it's in those spaces between the unanswered questions, those lingering echoes of emotion, that we truly discover who we are.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to ask you, what did Norwegian Wood leave you with? What resonated most deeply with you?
For me, it's the reminder that we're all in this together. Even when we feel lost and alone, there are others out there who, who understand, who have been through similar experiences, who can offer support and guidance. And that sometimes the simple act of reaching out, of connecting with another human being, it can be enough to pull us back from the brink.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. We Sharp This Deep Dive has given you a new perspective on Norwegian Wood, on Murakami's writing, and maybe even on your own life journey. And if you haven't already, I think you should seek out the novel and explore its depths for yourself. And remember, with Murakami, there are no right or wrong answers. It's about the journey, the exploration, the individual connections.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Norwegian Wood. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking out those stories that challenge, inspire, and ultimately